Miscarriage of justice. You see, when black people are threatened by white people and black people decide to defend themselves and they claim stand your ground in any other defense, typically they are still prosecuted, where a white male in that same situation would have been allowed to remain free. Let me give you this case. Marc Wilson, let's put his picture up full mass. You may not have heard of this story. We covered it one time in the past. Marc Wilson, 23 years of age, was accused of shooting and killing 17-year-old Haley Hutcheson after he fired at a truck full of teens in the Statesboro, Georgia vehicle, June 2020. Wilson's attorneys claimed he fired out of self-defense after two of the teens in the truck yelled racial slurs and tried to run him and his white girlfriend off the road. He acted in self-defense, and one of his bullets struck and killed Hutcheson, who was sitting in the back seat of the pickup. A black man who was, this was interesting because a black man who has affirmed the defense of self-defense is not able to stay free. What happened? He was convicted after a day of deliberation. The grand jury decided that Mr. Wilson was not justified when he used his legal gun against the teens he maintained made him fear for his life. But it didn't punish him to the full extent of the law. Involuntary manslaughter could mean up to 10 years behind bars, a less severe sentence than the possibility of life in prison if convicted of murder. Wilson is scheduled for sentencing in September, on September 20th. Let's go back at the time of the shooting. Wilson's lawyers said that if Wilson were white, the state's response would have played out much differently. Wilson, despite having no criminal record whatsoever, okay, no criminal record at all prior to this shooting, spent 1.5 years in jail awaiting a trial after the original judge overseeing the case, Michael Muldrew, denied him bail. Said you will not get bail in my state. So he denied him bail, so he stayed in jail for 1.5 years. The judge said that Mr. Wilson, with no prior criminal record whatsoever, the judge said Mr. Wilson posed a significant threat to the persons in the community based on the charges against him. The judge then was recused from the case in February after he met with two of the prosecuting attorneys in private and allowed them to view emails Wilson sent to his family. That's called ex parte communication, and it is a violation of ethics and rules. The judge engaged in that after not allowing Mr. Wilson to post bond. It was only after a new judge got on the case, that's Judge Ronnie Thompson, that is when a bond was granted at $100,000. I'm gonna give you background to this case compared to others. The case has been closely watched by experts and local human rights organizations, just like Georgia, to see whether a black man could successfully use a stand your ground argument when using deadly force. Similar self-defense arguments led to successful acquittals, as you know, Kyle Rittenhouse, Zimmerman, etc. Let's talk about the stand your ground law. From 2005 to 2010, the first 5 years after stand your ground laws were introduced, just 11% of the cases involving a black shooter invoking stand your ground and a white victim were deemed justified, according to a 2020 study by the US Commission on Civil Rights, compared to 45% of cases involving a black victim and a white shooter. So let's be very clear. We've been following this case since day one. I started following this case even before I got on TYT. His attorney used to be the president of the Georgia NAACP and is a remarkable civil rights leader. Bottom line, there's no ambiguity about the threat. Everybody agrees he was under threat. Everybody has concluded that he, in fact, had a reason to fear for his safety. They have still convicted this black male for self-defense that you know and I know would have been permitted under any other circumstance if he had not been a man of color. This is why the criminal justice system has problems that must be fixed, must be addressed, must be reformed. After he gets charged, the judge engages in an egregious act to keep him in jail without any remedy to post bond, fight these charges until it is exposed that he in fact has an inappropriate relationship with the prosecutors on this case. All right, appeal is coming, obviously, we're gonna give you the update to that. My dear sister, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, the first thing you said at the top of the story was exactly right. Miscarriage of justice. Horrifying miscarriage of justice. And for anyone wondering why the article stipulated, and you mentioned that this was a black man and his white girlfriend who got chased off the road. They were not the racial slurs they were yelling at him. They were calling his girlfriend a slur lover. And of course, especially with a history of lynching in the South, of course he had reason to be fearful that they were going to kill him. And it's important that was included in the story, but also the fact that the jury deliberated for just one day. It only took them one day to decide on this case. Horrifying. Of course, it's good that he wasn't convicted of the higher charges. He never should have been charged with them in the first place. Never should have been convicted with involuntary manslaughter. Never should have been charged for it. And even having faced all those charges, should have prevailed on a stand your ground defense. The reason he didn't is because he's a black man. That's it.
That's right.
I mean, white men who have had much weaker claims to stand your ground in self-defense have successfully claimed it, successfully defended themselves with it. The only difference between those cases, I mean, in this instance, it's a black man. I mean, it's obvious to anybody who's been paying attention.
Yep, you got a young black male in the deep South. He gets convicted of what? Shooting at white people. He gets convicted also, possibly, for having a white girlfriend. But let's be clear about the facts here. The law suggests that he was engaged in self-defense, period. All right,